was Jesus? What color?
Black.
Black? What color was he?
Caucasian. Caucasian.
Jesus was a human. That the presentation of a white Jesus down through history before people of color has served to characterize the Caucasian as superior, as the best, as better than others. And more than that, has perpetuated a lie on the people of color and continued their enslavement.
That's right.
Blair Underwood has produced a, it's misleading to call it a movie. It's a 30-minute short film. Yeah, a 30-minute film in which he plays Jesus. Let me show you just a piece of that, Blair, and then we'll gab here a little bit. Jesus, this is the crucifixion. This is right at the beginning of the film. Just a moment to show you. Watch.
See, this is something that we have to keep in mind. This is the image that they never wanted you ever to get inside your mind. They never ever wanted you to tear down the strongholds in the images of the so-called white Jesus, but to always keep that in your mind to keep you in bondage. You have to remove the chains from your mind. Jesus is black.
Here is the beginning of the film, titled The Second Coming, which was written, produced, and as you see, starred in by Blair Underwood. You should also know, without giving the story of this film away, that the historical Jesus then appears in your film as a contemporary black male.
Right.
Who is in a mental institution, and they're scared to death of this guy. And, I mean, almost to the point where, you know, they're just beating him down. Did the Rodney King thing inspire you?
Oh, most definitely. I've been very outspoken about things that I have dealt with the Los Angeles Police Department. Friends of mine, young African-American males with the so-called justice system. And when the Rodney King, the first verdict came out a year ago, it hit me. I said, you know, it doesn't matter if you're a so-called celebrity. It doesn't matter if you're Rodney King. Even Christ, if he were a man of color, were to come back, he would be treated the same way. So in the film, that's why he's accused of this heinous crime without giving too much of it away.
But I'm sure that Jesus, throughout your childhood, was white. Is that so?
That's correct, but we were always told that he was a man of color. Talk about blackness, it's defined by your ancestral lineage, your genealogical line. If you go to the genealogical line of Jesus, there are people of color throughout his lineage completely. And the thing is, before anybody can take issue with this film or with this entire issue, and it's not a novel idea, the significance of this film is it's never been on camera. A black Jesus has never been on camera, certainly not a crucifixion. So it's been there. And it's important to establish that because of all the things you said. We talked about the justice system. Well, but once we get beyond that, then, and only then, it becomes irrelevant.
And you're right. There are white people who have been so very, very exemplary in their continued effort to ensure that the civil rights of all people are protected. That people of color, minorities, have started to refer to them as brother or sister. Great. But they're still white. I think you are suggesting that there's some pretty good historical, anthropological evidence suggesting that Jesus just probably was black. Am I correctly stating your...
That's right.
Yeah, okay.
In that...
Was he a Jewish black guy?
Oh, there's no question. We're talking about a Jewish man from Jerusalem who more than likely, there were no camcorders or Polaroid cameras then, but more than likely had to have been a man of color. We're talking about probability.
Okay, so let's talk about it. It don't fit into the color of hue. Hue means color, color person, color man, color, okay? But let's keep moving right along. So always keep in mind, we're not to worship any images at all. So the fact that Blair Underwood, he played this role, we don't worship him as Jesus either. But the thing is, we have to begin to renew our mind and start to break off them strongholds off of our mind. In reference of when we think of Jesus, a white image pops up in your mind. And this might not be for all so-called blacks, Mexicans, and Native Americans. But for a lot of our people, this is still the case, okay? We're going to prove it through the precepts that so-called Jesus, what the world ignorantly calls Jesus, his name is Yahawashi, he is a black man. And this is easy. Let's get the precepts. First of all, we know that Adam was created from the dust of the ground. Look at the ground. What color is the dust? Dirt is brown. Various different shades of brown. The deeper you dig, the darker in brown is color. The darker it gets, okay? So we know original life stemmed from a so-called black man. This is Matthew chapter 1, and I'm gonna read just a couple precepts. I'm not gonna read through the whole genealogy. If you on your spare time want to do that, go right ahead. But throughout the genealogy that Yahawashi, which the world ignorantly calls Jesus, comes from, these were all so-called black men, okay? But we'll start. This is Matthew 1, the book of the generation of Jesus Christ, okay? The son of David, the son of Abraham. Abraham begot Isaac. Isaac begot Jacob. Jacob begot Judas, right? And you can keep going to get the further lineage. So we know the genealogy of Yahawashi. They were all so-called black men. Jesus was a Jew, Middle Eastern. He lived in Jerusalem, okay? Under that hot sun, we know that so-called Jesus is not a white man, because we know that the so-called white people cannot even bear to stay in the sun without being burned. Okay, so when they go under the sun, they turn red. They don't turn brown. They turn red. That eliminates Jesus being a so-called white man, okay? But here's a precept. This is Revelations. And I know y'all all should know this very well. Chapter 1 and verse 14. His head and his hairs were white like wool, as white as snow, and his eyes were a flame of fire, and his feet like unto fine brass, as if it had burned in a furnace, and his voice as the sound of many waters. So if you know what the color brass is, I don't have a penny. Brass is the color of a penny, okay? That's the color. Now imagine putting that inside of a furnace. It's going to turn black. This is Daniel 7 and 9. I beheld till the thrones were cast down, and the Ancient of Days did sit, whose garment was white as snow. Now, with the Ancient of Days, we know that that's the Most High Yahweh, okay? The hair of his head like the pure wool. So the Most High God, Yahweh, his hair is made of wool too. And Yahawashi, his hair is wool too, which the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ. His hair is wool. And the so-called black's hair is wool as well. That eliminates the so-called white man being Jesus. The image that they showed us, the image that they opposed on us and conditioned our minds to believe in and to worship over all these years, was a blue-eyed, blonde-hair Christ. You cannot find that anywhere in the scripture. So we know that's a lie. We know that's an idol. We know that's what causes us to separate. That separated us from our God. We're in transgression when we worship a white Jesus, because Jesus was not white. So-called Jesus is a black man all day long. All day long. All day long. And guess what? Gonna be a so-called black man that come back and crack them clouds. So I hope y'all ready. And I got one more precept to nail it on in there. This is Revelations chapter 4 and verse 2 and 3. And it says, and immediately I was in the spirit, and behold, a throne was set in heaven, and one sat on the throne. And he that sat was to look upon like a jasper and a sardine stone. And there was a rainbow round about the throne, and the sight unto an emerald. Sardine stone is brown. But shalom.